I grew up playing the basketball with the boys, so like it's always been physical and feisty, and like that's what it is. And you got to find a way to hold your.
Clark, Caitlin. 2 minutes ago, the unimaginable happened. The most talented player in the WNBA abruptly departed, leaving colleagues devastated and fans in shock. In the shadows, there are rumors. Was there a violent altercation with league officials? A catastrophic injury that was hidden? Or a scandal too risky to discuss out loud? The voice of Sophie Cunningham broke. Lexie Hull's eyes stung. The cameras captured their anguish. The stillness is thicker and the arena feels colder. What reality would make Clark leave? Everything will be rocked by the replies. The enigma surrounding Caitlin Clark. The focal point of the WNBA's most perplexing storm is Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who completely changed the league overnight. Until a few days ago. In addition to playing, she was dominating, setting team records for assists, points, and even the nightly headlines. She wasn't hurt, and she wasn't suffering. She wasn't missing any practices either. She was the spark that attracted a whole new generation of fans, filled venues, and increased television ratings. But she was gone in a flash. Nothing, just silence, no explanation, no warning. Like a wildfire, the astonishment spread. Theories proliferated in a matter of minutes. A few whispers around the game mentioned load management, a phrase that's frequently employed to cover up minor injuries or rest. Others alluded to ambiguous disciplinary grounds. But the parts were not compatible. The regulations had not been breached by Clark. She hadn't treated her teammates with disdain. She was actually doing flawlessly both on and off the court. Because of this, the absence felt more like a rubber than a benching. Those in attendance could sense something more profound going on in their bones. After then, there were murmurs coming from behind closed doors. There was increasing hostility between Clark and certain senior executives, according to sources familiar with internal league conversations. Her quick ascent involved more than just collecting points. Her voice was the issue. Interviews conducted after games become news stories. Videos of her unvarnished honesty went viral on social media. The unwritten rule of fitting in wasn't being followed by her. Not everyone at the top appeared to be okay with her sticking out. The fuse was sparked by a single rumor. Clark apparently criticized league marketing tactics in a private meeting, claiming they were tone-deaf and unconnected to the supporters she believed she represented. Her statements weren't sugar-coated. She refused to submit to authority. She talked clearly, but the conversation didn't go well, according to others in attendance. Her court time started to decrease within 48 hours. She was fully benched after 72 hours. It became worse. No interviews, no news conferences, and no outright declarations. One of the league's brightest lights seemed to have been turned into a ghost, as if someone had switched a switch. But her admirers wouldn't let her vanish. In contrast, Caitlin trended within hours using hashtags like #outrage is rife in comment sections. Transparency calls were heard on TikTok, Instagram, and X. The truth was sought after by thousands of devoted followers. NBA players joined the chorus, calling the league's treatment of Clark dishonest, calculating, and even inimical to the game's integrity. Suspicion increased with each unresolved query, and the WNBA's inaction further heightened the controversy. What started out as uncertainty has now evolved into resistance. Silence is no longer enough in this situation. It's about keeping quiet. Additionally, the mystery surrounding Caitlin Clark intensifies with each hour that goes by, exerting pressure on a league that is already having trouble keeping the narrative under control. The WNBA is battling more than simply a scandal for the first time. Fighting the supporters who won't turn away is the goal. There is still one unanswered question after Sophie Cunningham lights the fire. When its silence encourages revolt, will the WNBA be able to endure? Keep an eye out. The flames are started by Sophie Cunningham. The hush was oppressive as Caitlin Clark disappeared from view. But Sophie Cunningham entered that quiet. And everything changed. Reporters were still frantically looking for information fragments. Outraged fans were flooding league inboxes, but the WNBA's leadership said nothing. Sophie then said something. She didn't tiptoe. She didn't use language that were safe. She became quite angry. It took place during what ought to have been a regular post-game interview. Rather of using canned soundbites and courteous platitudes, Sophie said something that sent shockwaves across the sports world. If you're not afraid of your biggest star's power, you don't ignore her. The air in the room froze as soon as she finished speaking. Stunned, reporters leaned forward. And that video went viral on social media before the league's public relations team could come up with a single reply. TikTok, Instagram Reels, highlight channels, and podcasts were all over it in a matter of hours. Like an anthem, fans played it again and over. Sophie wasn't done. What started as a single outburst turned into an ongoing campaign. She went all out on her show, accusing the league of retribution and other more nefarious charges. She asserted that Clark's benching was entirely political in nature and had nothing to do with basketball. Sophie said that the league was more concerned with maintaining its power than recognizing the very talent that kept it afloat and was more interested in control than advancement. She went farther than most players would have, publicly stating what many had privately whispered. Clark's penalty served as a message to athletes about the consequences of speaking too loudly or shining too brightly. Like a razor, her words cut through the quiet. Sophie reiterated them on live broadcasts throughout team meetings. She wouldn't compromise her position. She saw losing minutes and incurring penalties as the true threat, thus she wasn't scared of the repercussions. It was allowing the league to easily eliminate one of this generation's most significant players. And the supporters answered. Her bravery spread like wildfire. Anger gave way to action with hashtags. Free Clark and Stand with Sophie started to trend together, supported by hundreds of voices. What had begun as a single remark had grown into a movement, a sweeping tide that the league was unable to ignore. Supporters gathered not only for Clark but also for Sophie, lauding her for being the sole athlete prepared to put everything on the line to expose what they saw as unfairness. The WNBA had not foreseen the spark, and it spread more quickly than anybody could stop it. The absence of a single player was no longer the focus of the fire. The integrity of a whole league was at stake. The WNBA fervently wished to keep a door closed, but Sophie Cunningham had opened it. Truths that threatened to change the game's future were hidden beneath it. What started out as Caitlin's absence is now threatening the league's existence. But what shocking reality is concealed by Lexie Hull's silence? Continue to observe. The stillness is broken by Lexie Hull. The league's walls had already shook from Sophie Cunningham's fire. However, the storm intensified the very following day. With an alternative form of power, Lexie Hull entered the conflict. She didn't make a lengthy declaration. She didn't rely on well-practiced lines or settle in for a comfortable podcast. Rather, she entered the press room immediately following practice, stared into the cameras, and spoke a single statement that was more impactful than any speech. "What do you think they'll do to the rest of us if they can treat Caitlin Clark this way?" The room went cold. Just the unvarnished truth, without any embellishment or gloss. Reporters ceased their scrawling. The players in the back who were listening moved uncomfortably, and the video quickly spread outside of women's basketball. WNBA fans were no longer the only ones reacting. It encompassed all facets of the sports industry. The same startled query is being asked by YouTube pundits and ESPN hosts alike. What is going on at the WNBA behind closed doors? Lexie continued after that. She shared an eye-catching black and white picture of herself with Caitlin Clark a few hours later. Loyalty was the only word in the caption. That one word sent up a flurry of conjecture. Was she accusing the locker room of betrayal? Was management the target? Did it serve as a warning to teammates who were under duress to keep quiet? Although no one could be certain, the time was unavoidable, and the uncertainty only heightened the suspense. Reports started to circulate behind the scenes. Since the dispute started, according to insiders, Lexie has emerged as one of the strongest voices at team meetings. She reportedly went straight to the coaching staff and demanded to know why the sole player who regularly sold out arenas was suddenly relegated to the bench. According to the article, her teammates supported her. A picture of a squad no longer unified under the weight of secrecy was painted in the press as soon as what had begun as murmurs of discord inside the locker room spread. Her own squad wasn't the only one involved. Lexie alluded to the fact that players from other teams had been discreetly discussing their concerns and annoyances with one another away from cameras and league representatives on the way the Clark case was being handled. There was genuine pressure to remain silent, but there was also a rising resolve to make the event memorable. According to sources, Lexie was assisting in uniting a group of younger athletes who were fed up with being instructed to play, smile, and keep quiet while their voices were being silenced and felt constrained by outdated politics. Then followed the cryptic, poignant, and unavoidable tweets. Before being erased, one in particular sent shockwaves. "Stop suppressing those who make a legacy if you wish to leave one." It was immediately screenshotted by fans. It quickly spread over fan forums, TikTok modifications, and Reddit conversations. There were many who thought the message was specifically directed at WNBA executives. Others contended that it was aimed at media personalities who were accused of playing down the dispute. However, one thing brought everyone together. Lexie wasn't only responding to what had happened. She was adamantly opposing quiet itself. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull have joined forces to form a front line. Two participants are prepared to put everything on the line by revealing secrets that others have hidden. And because of their disobedience, the league found itself in the midst of not only a dispute but also the seeds of a full-scale rebellion. How much will the WNBA crumble or resurrect as a result of Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull's defiance? Hold on tight. The revolution is on the horizon. The tide is turned by the supporters. It was as though a match had been struck in a room full of petrol when Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull finally broke the stillness. Instead than merely reacting, fans exploded. What started out as indignation swiftly evolved into an online uprising. The WNBA could no longer pretend not to hear it because it was so loud and unrelenting. All of the platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok, went live simultaneously. In a deluge, hashtags streamed over timelines. Hashtag free Caitlyn, hashtag justice for Clark, hashtag stop silencing celebs. Since each remark was directly from the fans who packed stadiums, purchased jerseys, and devotedly watched games on streaming services, it had greater weight than the league's official declarations. In a matter of hours, WNBA accounts began to flood in. Every post, whether it was promoting a charity event, a sponsorship, or a highlight, was hijacked by irate comments that demanded answers. Usually humming with arguments over statistics and tactics, sports forums turned become hotbeds of annoyance and distrust. However, the rebellion continued beyond hashtags. Fans became detectives. They began analyzing game film, constructing timelines, comparing minutes played, and extracting freeze frames to tell a tale the league would not clarify. In a few videos, Clark was pushed hard on drives to the basket, and the refs failed to whistle.